Alright guys, a little tutorial on using heat to color your steel. First things first, you definitely want to make sure that your steel is clean, so get rid of your mill scale. I've left this side pretty dirty just so we can see how that's going to turn out. This one is partially cleaned, but very inconsistent, so we're going to see the coloring on that. This one is mostly clean. I'm not going to take the time to clean up the edges just for a test run, but it's clean enough for you guys to get the idea. If your steel is dirty, if you have mill scale, anything like that, your colors will be diluted first of all, and it'll end up darker, which if that's the look you're after, that's an option, I guess, but it does dilute the colors, and if it's inconsistently clean, it looks really blotchy. So once you start coloring steel, there's a pretty tight spectrum. It's between about 400 degrees. This is going to be upside down for you guys, but I'm not going to try to write it correctly. It's between about 400 and 620, somewhere in there, plus or minus 10 degrees. There's about 15 different shades of colors in that spectrum, and it goes from like yellow and a few variations of yellow, orange, red, purple, and then finally blue. And all of these, there's about 5 shades in each of those groups, or about 3 shades in each of these groups, and each shade is about 15 degrees window. So remember this. The transition between those colors happens very quickly, right? So if you just want to do a complete rainbow effect and the color doesn't matter, have at it, and we'll take a look at how that would work out. But if you do care about a color, like if you're specifically going for a blend of red and purple, which on the project that I'm actually doing, I am after a certain color spectrum. If you are after a certain color spectrum, you got to remember that steel will transfer heat, right? So let's say we're after purple. And if I start heating up this corner until it turns purple, and I'm like, cool, that's the color I want, now I'm going to start working on this piece of the material and get it purple. As I heat up this piece, that heat will transfer, and just remember that it's a tight window, it's only 15 degrees. So as I heat up the second piece that I want to turn purple, that heat will transfer and potentially turn my first color up to blue, which is not what we're after, right? So the trick is to heat up the entire piece evenly, and then so I use the MAP gas just to get the whole piece up to temperature, and I use propane to propane burns a little bit cooler. They're both hot, obviously, but MAP is a little bit hotter. Propane burns a little bit cooler though, so you have a little bit more control over how quickly you go through those color variations. Does that make sense? So the trick is to heat up the whole piece and then gradually start once it starts getting into the color spectrum, it'll start with a light bronze, and once you see that, you can dial back the heat and start doing it gradually. So I'm starting to get a little bit of color. Turn that heat down because we've got the whole piece up to temperature now. We're just trying to get the color precise. So the whole piece is at 400 degrees now, so we're playing with plus or minus 15 degrees. Does that make sense? So we can actually pull, you can use your torch to kind of guide that color ahead of what you've already colored. Stay ahead of it though, because if you stay on it, you'll heat the section behind it. You'll overheat that. So you do want to stay ahead of that. So my torch is over here, but you can see the color change happening right underneath the O. Turn our heat way down, get some color in that little middle one. So I think that's about it for this little test run. If you heat it up beyond that blue, it turns into a really ugly puke green. where it just looks washed out. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's some glare. But it just looks washed out, and you won't be able to get that color back unless you grind it off and start over. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So this side was a little bit cleaner, and you can see basically the whole spectrum here. We're going from like a bronze, yellow, into some oranges, some reds, some purple, some blue, and then this section here is, it's like green silver, but it's just washed out from overheating it. So it's a very, remember, it's a very tight window of opportunity to get those colors. This, from this point to this point, is about 100 degrees. So you do have to have some self-control there. Let's try it on the cleaner piece. This one is, so this one was not super cleaned, right? And you can kind of see where this color stops transferring because the steel itself is dirty. Whereas spots where the steel is cleaned better, the color transfers farther into the material. But it's being interrupted up here, where you still see bronze below that. But this is just mill scale and it just stays gray. So make sure your piece is clean. Let's try it on this more silver side. And I'm going to go for mostly purple and red, because that's the actual project that's the colors that I want on my actual project. So we're going to try and duplicate that and avoid blue. You'll probably get some blue, but we're going to avoid it as much as we can. So keep in mind, if you're only coloring one face, you don't really need to worry about how it transfers around the corner. But on the project I'm doing, it's three-dimensional, and we're trying to color all four sides of that piece evenly. So keep that in mind as you're doing this, because the coloring that we did up here hasn't transferred all the way around yet, but the material itself is still hot. So it's the same concept up here where we're heating up gradually, but you're doing that on all four sides of the material as well. So you're heating up all four sides gradually. This one you can see that golden color is already starting to show up. So there's we reach that temperature a lot faster than on the first side, just because the whole piece itself is already hot. We're starting to transition out of that pale yellow and into like some oranges and stuff. So I'm going to switch to propane just so I have a little bit more control over that color. Maybe. Nope. I guess I need a new propane tank. We'll do it with that gas. If you do have a lighter gas like propane, this is a good time to switch to that. We're starting to get out of the yellow and into some oranges and reds, so you really don't want to overheat it. The whole piece is hot at this point. $200s. Starting to get some burnt orange in here. Right. So now we're getting red, but remember, on this project, we don't want to go crazy and turn it blue. We're trying to stay in that red-purple spectrum. Pretty nice golden color right now. Now we have this spot with that little red dot, and we can start moving that red. Remember, you want to stay in front of it, not on it. And it's going to pull that red towards the end. see that. Yep. Let's go back the other way, and we're going to stay ahead of it. You guys see that red starting to pull through to the left? Got purple over there. We don't want to go too much more than that. Get a little bit of red on this side. Corners stay cooler, just the heat doesn't transfer as well over the corners. So you can kind of overheat the edge of that and pull that color around the corner. Ended up with a couple pieces of blue in here, but yeah, so we ended up with a little bit of blue in here. This is mostly purple in here. There's a tiny bit of blue, tiny bit of blue. This got washed out, so we got into that gray pattern. Same thing right here, that's gray. A little bit of blue in here, but for the most part, that center is the purple and the deep red that I'm after. I like how there's parts of it that are still kind of that straw hazel color, if that makes sense. Definitely the color spectrum we're after, and if I end up with a little bit of blue on this project, it's not the end of the world, but I do want to keep it mostly in that purple burnt orange flavor. And then this is going to be the mill scale that wasn't cleaned up before we even started the process. So if you are after a nice finished look, definitely make sure your steel is clean before you start this. So I'll share the, pretty cool, honestly, compared to a piece of mild steel, pretty cool effect. So I'll share this is a little table stand, so I'll share that project with you when it's, when I get to that point. Talk to you guys later, bye.